Hi everybody. I really hope that you're watching this and that you can hear us. Please write into the chat and let us know, just for my nerves, to make sure that this is all working fine. We're trying out a new sort of hangout today because up till now I've had my guests on webcam, as you know, and we've been face to face on the internet, but today I have the absolute pleasure of being face to face with Håkan Hardenberger. I'm so happy. This is actually the best way to interview someone face to face and be able to laugh and look in their eyes and see them. Håkan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Let me just tell you guys, Håkan had a concert here last night with the Mahler Chamber Orchestra. A huge success.
Very nice concert.
Haydn
and Gruber busking.
Gruber busking,
Yeah.
That's half an hour of you busking.
Yes, fantastic piece, with strings, banjo and accordion. Half an hour of non-stop playing, E-flat trumpet, flugelhorn, C trumpet.
Did anybody throw any money?
No, sadly.
Well, today, Håkan, you weren't quite sure what you were expecting here, were you? It was all, you've seen a bit of the Hangouts, but to know that you're live on the internet and all these people are, so someone's just written in, I love you, Friggy and Trondheim, greetings from Norway. So that's what happens. Yeah. Everyone is going to write in some questions. I'm going to be looking at you, looking at them, looking here on the chat. So you guys, I hope you bear with us. We have Jakob, our wonderful technical guy here in Berlin, over here. He's mixing the video picture for you. And of course, Tim in Melbourne. Hi, Tim. It's very, very late. So thank you for staying up to manage this. So I'll get to your questions in a bit, but first I want to have a chance to ask my questions. Håkan, when I interview someone, I don't like to really ask the questions that you can Google the answers to. So I tend to make phone calls. I mean, we've met a couple of times, but we don't know each other very well. So I phone a couple of people and say, hey, tell me something about Håkan. I'm not looking for the dirt, of course, but just sort of things, that people might be interested in. And I spoke to a Swedish trumpet player who will remain nameless until after the interview and said, what is it about Håkan? Why is this guy so amazing? And he said, well, Håkan is he's just this Swedish guy who happens to be really good looking and who got a trumpet for Christmas and practiced then 10 hours a day. So there's nothing really spectacular in that, except that you work like crazy.
Yeah, I think, the famous 10,000 hours that you're supposed to do, I think I did them already when I was 12 or something like that. The trumpet really hits me. The destiny of the trumpet hits me. That Christmas gift that I was given. But also very, very important is of course the first teacher. The way Bo Nilsson managed to infuse the love for music and for the instrument. I mean, there was no classical music in the family. There was no tradition of.
So why did your dad buy you a trumpet?
He'd been to a concert with Louis Armstrong in the late 50s or something like that in Malmö, and he just remembered it was just a fun thing to do. And he bought an old beaten up trumpet, and they mended it the night before Christmas, and I got it. And then very soon after, I met Boo. So. It started off very, very well.
He was amazing. There's some great footage of you two on YouTube. There's a little snippet of you two playing a concerto together.
Oh yeah.
And he's looking really serious, and you're just sort of bopping around, just having a good time. You look very cool. You had the most incredible hairstyle.
Oh, it was the style of the 80s, I'm afraid. Do forgive me.
There's a documentary that I looked at to prepare for this, and it was made in 1992, and great hair again, really great hair. But you were already a bit of a media star because you were very good at talking to the camera and explaining what you were doing. You had a hose pipe at some point, and it was a really good.
Well, he was a very good producer who did this film, and he told me what to do, and I did it.
You felt very comfortable.
Yeah, but they were nice. They were nice people. Yeah. I mean, like now, it's also easy to talk. Some people make you uncomfortable, some people make you comfortable.
I really recommend this YouTube video. It's a documentary, and it's very inspiring, and some great family photos of Håkan as a young boy. So it's really true that you practiced 10 hours a day.
Well, I did practice. I think when I was very young, Boo was also careful. I remember practice, make as much break as you practice. Be sure of that, and maybe first I would start with little 10-minute sessions, and it was more and more. And I think by the time I was 12, I was probably practicing about 4 hours a day. And of course, it's not the amount of hours itself that is important. It's what you do in those hours.
But you still practice more hours than I think I did in a week, in a day.
Yeah, I just like doing it, and I still do. I mean, if I don't, I don't feel very well. You know,
is it really like that? I mean, the hours you put in, because how do you prepare yourself mentally to do that much practice? You know, you see people in hotel rooms watching TV while they practice on tour, or reading a book, or of course we wouldn't recommend this to do at home, would we?
Well, if it's something that you just need to get through, you know, or even something that you need to get into the back brain, it can even be a good thing to watch television or do something else. For instance, you know, some memorizing or something like that, where you have a disturbance factor can be quite efficient. But I think the most important is to have an idea why you practice. So you start off with the idea, why am I sitting here now? You know, and then. So you have a goal, what you want to achieve, how am I going to go about it? I'm not going to go more than... There was one, I was experimenting for a while with my concentration span, and I remember it was something like 22 minutes or 23 minutes.
How do you experiment with it?
Well, I just noticed that then, and so then my practice sessions would be that, and then I would have a break. And
22 minutes concentration span. Okay, that's really like literally just playing for 22 minutes and not thinking about dinner or what phone call you have to make.
And then that changed. I mean, it was for a while I was working like that. You try different methods, different approach, until you find what is you, how you, in the best possible way, can achieve what you want to achieve.
Still a lot of hours though, and I think a lot of the students will be asking, how about my lips if I practice that long? You know, because if I practice that long and then next day.
But it may be, you know, if you practice too loud, you can't do it for many hours. Very loud, very soft, very soft, very slow, you know, making sure that you only enter good information to the brain.
Håkan, Richard in Melbourne asked, do you do anything while you practice that gets you used to distractions while performing? Or like training horses in the war, they train with the blinders.
I remember when I was a kid and I was going to do my first concert, we had a dog at home, a great big Saint Bernard dog, and he was kind of sensitive to the sound of trumpet playing, so he'd go howling when I was playing, and I remember my dad saying, "Oh, that's good. Let him continue."
We had Carol Jantz's cat the other day, and Gail Williams, her dogs were howling. So obviously
there will be distraction. You might as well get used to it.
Can you give us, Kendall asked, can you give us some examples of your goals and what you want to achieve in a practice session?
Well, that would be very much a particular sound, a particular attack, you know, something that I've maybe heard a violinist or a singer do, and I would think, you know, going from then the text of the music, trying to see what the composer is wanting, and finding, you know, Thibaut always said, on the violin there is 5,000 ways for one note. On the trumpet we have 2. We get it or we miss it. And, you know, he said if you can have 10 ways of starting a note, then you have a language. And so I will think about those things, and then you practice until you get it that way. So it's all a process of thought. First you have to be curious. You have to fill yourself up with information, you know, listening to a lot of music, looking at art, reading books, all the things that will inspire you. Because if you just sit there and you don't know what it is you want to achieve, then the 4 hours are not very well spent.
Or 10.
Yeah, then they will hurt.
Yeah, then
they
will
really hurt.
Pierre Thibault was your teacher at the in Paris at the Conservatoire.
Yeah.
And there's a great story about Håkan. You practiced in his house, right? Mm-hmm. And you were downstairs or upstairs? Downstairs. And whenever he made a mistake, Pierre Thibault would bang with his feet on the ceiling and shout "Merde!"
Absolutely.
Yeah. Really.
And it was good, you know, because I think now when I teach, one of the things I really would like to do is to kind of observe how people actually do practice, because practice is often not so efficient. We are not good at separating what is performance and what is practicing. So a lot of people, they perform a little bit when they practice. They like to practice the things they're good at, and especially if you're in a place where other people can hear you practicing, you play your good high notes so that you
and as loudly as you can.
And then performing, when you have your concert or audition or something, then people suddenly start to practice and being very critical as, oh, that was not very good, I shouldn't have done it like that. And then if you don't separate those two things, it can be very, very difficult for the mind.
Practice, there's no way around it, is there?
No,
absolutely no way around it.
What we do is a very old-fashioned thing in that respect. It's like ballet dancing or painting. You have to acquire a skill to do what we do, that's for sure.
Tomek from Poland, Mr. Hardenberger, what goes through your head when you play? Do you sing the melody mentally as you play?
Very much so. That's a very, very good question. And there has to be this inner voice all the time. And the performances that are successful is when you really achieve to hear that all the time. And you're almost kind of taking away the self. It's almost a Zen Buddhist thing. The self goes away, and then you are the best possible conductor in the electric term, sense of the word rather, between the composer and the audience. You're just there, and you happen to be playing the trumpet. And it's also a big paradox, because that's when you can add the most of yourself.
It's strange. You have to turn yourself off to be able to add the most of yourself.
Yes.
You already said that in 1992, by the way.
Did I?
You did.
Oh,
you
I
said,
am repeating myself.
No, I'm happy that you do. You can't hear that often enough.
Yeah.
It's really the best concerts are when you get yourself out of it. My worst concerts are when I'm worried about how I am going to be, what he's going to in the audience going to think of me, what my colleagues are going to think. Those are just the worst concerts.
And it's not good to think like that.
Yeah, it's almost worse than a big orchestra.
And
when
maybe
there's
that's
a lot
why
of
I
people.
repeat myself, because it is something I actually do think about. It's not that because you've been doing this for many years, that you just go on stage like that. Every day that I go on stage, that process happens. I look in the mirror in the morning and I say, are you gonna play tonight in this great hall? And do you deserve that? And it's this process happens.
Do you really think? Do you deserve that?
Deserve? But or can you do it? Can I do it?
Yeah. Do you worry that today's going to be the day that I ruin my reputation forever?
No. Early on, I said to my father, I look in the mirror and I can almost feel whether it's going to be a good concert tonight or not. And he said, don't look in the mirror.
That's good advice. That's very good
and
advice.
I remember also Elgar Howarth giving me very good advice in the beginning of my career, when I was very worried. Am I in good shape? And he said, well, you have to take for granted that you are in good shape, or at least that your lowest level is good enough.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
So that's another argument for a lot of practice.
My old teacher used to say every idiot can play with a good set of chops. So it's the days that you play with a bad set of chops, that's when you really see the true professionals, because if you're really feeling great, it's a fantastic feeling, but you've still got to play great when you're not feeling so good. That's a tough one to get over.
Yeah, but with the right practice, you get to know your own system.
Yeah.
And you can fix it very early on in the warm up what doesn't feel so good.
A lot of questions about warm ups coming in here.
Mm-hmm.
Macedonia, and I wish I could pronounce his name, Stojance. So sorry, from Macedonia, great place. Mr. Hardenberger, how do you warm up before concerts? And that's always a good question, because warming up implies a sort of 5-hour warm up, but you just have to.
Yeah, I have the long warm up is done in the morning usually, and whether you call that warm up or maintenance or developing, it's got all the disciplines in it. And then when that's done, maybe there's a rehearsal and I rest some, I go to the concert hall, and then I have a short little
tootle.
Yes, which is more or less always the same, is to get me into that.
Yeah. warm-ups. Oh gosh, there's so many questions. It's going crazy. It's fantastic. Two similar questions. Bob in Leeds. Hello, Leeds. Given all the trumpet warm-up routines, are there some out there that you have a favorite? Now, I know that because I read it in an interview you gave for the Trumpet Guild. Or does it depend on your agenda or any particular day of the week? Do you play James Stamp on this day or Arben on this day? Or Arben's not a warm-up, but...
You're quite right.
Just thought I wouldn't be a total horn ignoramus there.
Well, I met Stamp very early on, and in fact also my first meeting with Thibault had to do with Stamp. He gave me a Stamp exercise on our very first meeting. So Stamp exercises has been part of my everyday diet for a very, very long time.
Andrea says, what is important to know about James Stamp warm-ups and exercises?
Well, that there are exercises that were given for particular reasons to particular people, and then of course other people have collected them in books.
Yeah.
You know, it's not to play through like another book. You use certain exercises for certain problems or certain things. But there's three different basic warm-ups in the Stamp. And to return to the previous question, a little bit depending on how I feel, I will choose which one I do.
That's important. I think I always try and tell the students it's not necessary to do the same thing every day. You sort of, there is good to have the discipline, but you should really pay attention to what you think you need.
What I look for is the same every day.
Very, very good point. What you look for is the same, but you don't always have to take the same way to get there.
No. And the most important tool, we always talk about lips and lungs, and the most important tool that we ignore too much are the ears. You know, it's by listening that you can hear which way you should then go in the warm-up.
Amen. Amen. Fantastic stuff. Now we've got someone called, Lurtkiat, you've met him. He's from Bangkok. Yeah. But he's in Kuala Lumpur right now. Hi. Håkan, you never wanted to play in an orchestra, only be a soloist, or how did you decide early? Did you decide early on to be a soloist, and did you make your practice session only to be a soloist? That's an interesting question.
Early on, before it was decided that I would go to Thibault in Paris.
Were your parents a bit worried about that? You were 16.
I was 16, but the choice was rather that I would go maybe to Chicago and study there with Bud, and then maybe it would have gone into a more orchestral direction.
You would have been principal trumpet of Chicago
Symphony
now.
Who knows what would have happened? You know, that's what life is.
Or maybe third or second or something.
Yeah, or not at all. You know, maybe have no gift for that. I don't know. But then in Paris, I studied so hard, and there was so much information, and in a way, the decision was taken for me, because I did take one decision. It was not to go into the orchestra straight after Paris, because I had so many things.
How old were you? 19?
I was 19, 20. Yeah. So much information that I still needed to assimilate, and I needed some time after Paris to do that. And I thought, if I go into orchestra now, I won't be able to. So I did that, and then by the same time there was some competition, some invitations, and very, very slowly this started to happen. Was
it a bit worrying at the beginning of your career, because you were then a trumpet soloist, and in those days, okay, you had Maurice Andre, but was he making a living only from being a trumpet soloist? Was he doing orchestra stuff?
Oh no, he was absolutely.
He was absolutely only a soloist.
Yes.
But it wasn't an easy way to make your living, because there wasn't enough repertoire at the beginning.
No.
Because you have been amazing in getting all these pieces done for trumpet players. I mean, if you're going to leave the hugest legacy for trumpet players, I'm sure they're really grateful, though they look quite fiendishly difficult, most of them. But it was a little bit. Did you just play Haydn on the road for the first few years? Haydn
no. I mean, I was into finding repertoire from the beginning. Yeah, and we have no Beethoven, we have no Brahms like you do.
Oh, we don't really either.
Yeah, but chamber music.
Yeah, we do.
So it was necessary to find, and I also realized that for the instrument or a potential soloist to be taken seriously, the transcription road was maybe not the way to go at that time. And Maurice had done incredible things, the quality of playing, the bringing this trumpet to the concert stage, really.
Yeah, he was really the first.
Yeah, Scherbaum was maybe also, and then Maurice.
Yeah.
Maurice definitely the first one to be recognized as an international.
What was your very first commission? You remember?
My very first commission. Oh, it was a little piece for trumpet and organ by, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Really.
How did you persuade then? The bigger composers. Bert Whistle was one of the first people that wrote something huge for you. Yes. I listened to a bit of that. I don't even know how you read the notes of that piece.
Well,
did you just meet them?
No, Elgar Howarth, I would say, was more important. Him and Philip Jones were more important to me in the beginning than they will, take the honors for. They introduced me. Elgar Howarth introduced me to Bert Whistle, for instance, and to Ligeti, and also to parts of the music scene. I mean, I had my first BBC Prom concert was already in '85, and I was completely unknown with the hair. And then they commissioned a concerto for the drums by Gordon Cross. And for them to do that for a completely unknown young trumpet player, of course there must have been someone behind the scenes.
No, you probably had a very good agent by then.
Also.
Yeah, but I can imagine that these modern composers are really, they're always hungry to try something new. And to know that there was somebody like you who'd practiced 10 hours a day and had been, whipped into shape in Paris, and really you didn't have these technical boundaries that maybe an orchestral player had in those days. It must have been so exciting.
I'm sure I had boundaries, and I'm sure I still have boundaries, but the new pieces are, of course, a way of passing them. Because it's when you have something in a piece that you want to achieve, something in a text or something a composer tells you, you have to find the tool how to do it. So you go through your toolbox, and if there isn't a tool, then you have to find it.
What about
or invent one?
What about composers asking you to do weird and wonderful things with the trumpet? What's the weirdest thing that someone has made you do?
I tend to avoid anything that it's sort of abusing the instrument.
Yeah.
I think the one I gave all the tricks to was H.K. Gruber for the big concerto Ariel. Because I knew...
As in tricks?
As in tricks, as in, removing slides and getting echo kind of sounds and multiphonics, singing and playing, different glissandi. Because I knew he would use it in a very poetic way, not as a circus act. And that's very important.
That's very important. There's a wonderful bit in this 1992 documentary where you go to Montepulciano to see Henze.
Yeah.
Bless him. And he wrote the Requiem trumpet part for you. Yeah. And you go to Montepulciano in the summer and you're sitting there with him expecting him to bring it out of his bag and show it to you. And he says, I might have the first movement ready by Christmas. And you're like, oh, and you were trying to be really polite. And then and he said, and maybe the second movement by Easter. And you're like, you could really see you were trying to really hold your tongue.
Yeah.
But he wanted to get to know you first. Well,
yes, and I think he needed also his idea for what the trumpet piece was. And I remember he said later that he asked me what my favorite composer was, and I remember at the time it was Beethoven, and then he said, "Oh, so I need to write something serious then." So I think he needed to think about the approach aesthetically to the trumpet.
He thought a lot, didn't he? I played in Montepulciano as well, and had many exciting and very adventurous moments on stage with him conducting. But it was a total privilege to work with him, and I think the trumpet part of the Requiem is just
I just played it recently
with Marcus, didn't you?
Yes.
I was supposed to play in that with Ensemble Moderne, and we couldn't. We had a concert here.
The original in the place where it was first performed in Cologne, and very emotional.
I bet it was.
And I remember the first performance. I could really feel that this is a moment in musical history, and it is a very strong piece.
Well, musical history, Brett Dean, our friend Brett Dean is writing something for you, I heard.
Yes, at the very moment, I certainly hope.
He was just on a plane. Brett Dean was a viola player in the Berlin Phil, and he's an amazing composer. We're doing some stuff of his soon too.
Yeah.
And he's just on a plane back to Melbourne, and it's really hot there, so I don't know quite how much writing he'll be doing the next few days. But,
next few days maybe not.
Your agents are watching, Andreas and EJ.
Ah, hello.
So, and they have a question, which I will get to very soon, I promise, dear agents. Your podium swap with your great colleague, John. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I promise we'll get onto that. So Brett is writing a piece for you.
Yes.
And I just think it's amazing that trumpet playing has someone like you who's commissioning all these works. It's really such a gift.
Yeah, well, for me, it's the way of finding energy to go on. You know, as much as I love the Haydn, you know, like last night with a great orchestra and a great conductor, it is incredible fun. But if the musical substance is not enough, then you lose the will to do all the hours that you have to do. Or at least I have to do.
How many Haydns do you think you've played?
I have no idea. I'm not. I don't count.
You don't tick them off.
I also don't know how many pieces I have premiered.
No, I should know that as your interviewer.
You know, the beautiful thing of music is the moment.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a trophy. A concert, however great, is not a trophy. It's gone. Yeah. Once you've done it, it's gone.
The buses are still running when you come outside, even if you've had a huge disaster on stage, the life just goes on. Yeah. But I know, it's funny, you go into this tunnel preparing for a concert, and then you're off stage and it's gone, but it's still, you've touched the souls of many people, and you never know quite, there might just be one particular person there in the audience who just needs exactly what you're doing on that day, and then it's all worth it. Sometimes we don't know that, and sometimes we're hungry and tired, but it's quite a lonely life on the road. Yeah,
no, it's not. I wouldn't say it's.
You wouldn't say lonely?
No. I mean, I have friends all over the world because of music.
Because of what you do, yeah. So you can't actually go anywhere and have a peaceful time. Everyone wants to take you out to dinner.
You can decide. Today I want a lonely day, or today I want to see people.
Today you come to the Philharmonie to talk to Sarah and all your fans online. Okay, we better get back to your questions online, because I'm talking to you all about my things. Oh, we've got Edmundo from Guatemala saying he wants to know what it takes to win an orchestral audition. I think we'll ask that another time, because you never did win an orchestral audition, did you?
And in fact, I never...
You never took one?
I never took one. So
be glad.
I can imagine them being
terrifying.
Very terrifying and very...
Terrifying.
Not very musical experiences. And the fact, for instance, for the trumpet, I don't know what you use for the horn, but for the trumpet is always the Haydn concerto, and which is a strange thing, because that's not when you're going to show your beautiful orchestral sound, and
it always goes we always wait for that moment in trumpet auditions.
No, I have absolutely no advice on that, I'm afraid.
What trumpet, Matthias in Freiburg, what trumpet do you play? What brand, what series? You play about 100 trumpets?
No, not so many. And it's Bob Malone, who has been making my trumpets since early 80s. And this particular one, my C trumpet, which is the one I use the most, is a kind of a prototype Yamaha, no model, not associated to any model. Good question from Thomas. Do you warm up on your B flat or your C trumpet? On my C trumpet. I'm not particularly interested in that, but I'm sure there are lots of people that are. on the C trumpet. The C trumpet happens to be the one where I feel, it's not that it has to be C or B flat. It's like shoes. You wear what is comfortable for you. It is not like shoes. No, ladies never wear what is comfortable. Shoes are totally different. Yes. You wear shoes not because they're comfortable, but because they look nice. Don't you know anything about girls? I know some men that really go for shoes as well. I mean, that's... Okay, now I'm going to get on to something...
hello from Mark Doolin. He did the audition. Hi, Mark. And Mark was very helpful because he sent me your interview that he'd done for the Trumpet Guild.
Yes.
Which is pages and pages of technical stuff. So I know a lot about trumpet playing, technical stuff. But thanks, Mark. It was really great help. A great interview out there. He says hi and to ask you how you use Caruso for strength.
Well, yeah. When the Caruso method appeared was when I was still in Paris, and Thibaut was always open to the new. It was very, very unusual, and he would try it, himself, and make his students try it almost immediately. And I remember these sessions where we would be sort of 8 to 10 people doing the Caruso exercises all together, this horrid sound, and we did it really severely, not letting go, and people would faint, and Thibaut, who had these couple of heart attacks, he would sit there cross-eyed and said, if I can do it, you can do it, and it was very tough, and we couldn't play for days after. But I discovered something in it that really was very important to me. It gave me that little extra. I think without discovering the Caruso, I couldn't be playing the pieces I do. Okay. And I now use it. Again, you find your own way. So I have a little version of the Caruso that I do at the very end of the day. For instance, last night when they were playing the symphony, after I was done, I did my little.
You didn't.
I absolutely did.
You practice after you finished your 2 concertos.
Yeah. I mean, it takes very little time.
I'm so impressed.
And it makes the next couple of days a lot easier.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
Okay, well, I am more and more impressed as this goes on. I think, have you got bad days for your embouchure? Do you feel good every day? No, of course, I never do. So
no, I feel with the years I feel less fluctuation, I have to say.
It's true, isn't it?
I don't have many dips, and if I have one, I almost always know what to do.
Pray?
No, I mean I know what exercises.
You know what exercises to do.
Yeah.
It's important for students to listen to their own bodies, isn't it? And just sort of think, okay, I'm going to get my warm up and get that done. I'm going to go on to the question that your agents have asked. They say your agents are pleased to see you're so chatty. And I was going to ask about this.
I never talk to them.
No, you don't talk to agents, just only about money.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid so much for this interview.
Yes.
I'll pay you in beer later on at dinner. It was something I was going to ask about because when we met in Sydney for the YouTube Symphony, you conducted a piece, and it was the first time I'd seen you conduct. It was a really complicated brass piece. It was Turnage, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's right. Really not an easy piece, but they got it, thanks to you keeping them in order there. Conducting is something that you came to naturally. Was it something do you conduct from the trumpet? Why did you suddenly? Well, not suddenly.
It's not so suddenly. No, it's sort of. I call it my cactus plant. It's been standing in the no sun, no water, nothing, but it's still.
It's there.
It keeps being alive, and I really enjoy it. It's just another way of making music. I think it started out of master classes. Actually, I discovered the feeling of how you by gesture can bring music out of people, and then it started with small pieces, Soldier's Tale and things like that, and it will be the day the trumpet doesn't sound so good anymore. I cannot see myself not performing.
So what's this podium swap? What was that?
The podium swap is something. It's coming up in Manchester soon. It's me and John Sturgårds, who is a brilliant conductor, and I think has the world record in trumpet concertos. He's conducted at least 18 different pieces with me, and surely with some other people more. So anyway, he's also a great violinist, and he is doing the British premiere of Kimmo Hakkola's violin concerto. So the first half of the program I'm conducting, and I do the Symphonies of Winds and the violin concerto, and then there's the break. And then I do the British premiere of Tobias Broström's trumpet concerto, and Jon is of course conducting, and he finishes with Petrushka.
Goodness me!
Yeah,
That's
that should be quite unusual.
Yeah. And is it? Have you had lessons? I mean, you've really.
I do
sort
take
of,
lessons.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What does one do when one take lessons? Do you have to practice in front of a mirror? I haven't got that far yet. I'm sure I will at some point.
No, I you know, some people you talk through scores with, and hear their experiences, and with other people. I mean, Leif Segerstam, I take some lessons with, and there it's also technical. Yeah.
A lot of people in our orchestra, we have quite a few conductors in the orchestra,
Yes.
and they have the best training because we sit there and we watch the best conductors in the world doing their job.
And I've been standing next to conductors for many years.
So you know what you don't want.
Yeah, but I mean, I also realized that and I certainly feel I still enjoy playing the trumpet so much. I don't want to be conducting too much. But as I said, you know, the day the trumpet is not sounding good anymore, it will make me still do music.
You still enjoy playing the trumpet, and that is the most important thing. And Jeffrey Johnson, who writes a fantastic blog, Sonic Labyrinth blog. Hi, Jeffrey. Thanks for all your help in publicizing this great interview. He wants to know what other composers are writing for you in the future. We have Brett Dean.
Yes.
Got anything else planned? You can tell us about?
Turnage is going to write.
Oh, you lucky
second
thing!
one. Yes.
I love Mark Anthony Turnage's stuff. That's wonderful.
So I have the first piece he wrote was Dispelling the Fears, which is part of Blood on the Floor now, which is for 2 trumpets and orchestra. And then he wrote From the Wreckage, which is a great piece.
All his names are sort of, we just did one, Out of Black Dust. Yes, they're all, you know, Mark Anthony, come on, you got to get a few cheerful things in your titles there.
And From the Wreckage, I'm playing with the LSO next month. And we are now talking about a second piece.
Fantastic! Oh, great! But the one thing I also want to talk to you about, you've lived from your CDs as well as your your concert platform career. You've recorded more CDs, I think, than any other trumpet player ever.
No, I'm sure Morris.
Really? Oh, Morris did? Okay.
I'm sure he did many more than that.
I don't know. I didn't count. Sorry, I didn't have time to count them all. But anyway, your CD collection, you start your discography and it goes on for ages, which is fantastic. But what's happening now in this day and age? Because there are these crazy people that come online and say, oh, let's put everything online, and that's maybe not such a great thing.
Well, it is a great thing in many ways. It's the most wonderful thing that art can reach many people everywhere. That is a fantastic possibility, but we have to make sure that the composers and the artists still can live from it.
Yes.
You know, that's where the format is not yet good. You know, the cost of making a recording, the cost of an orchestra, the technical cost, it is very big. And you know, a composer like Gruber will spend a year maybe writing a piece, you know, and then to be able to download it with a click and then for nothing, we have to find a way.
What about live playing on the internet?
Yeah, it's
Where's your trumpet? No, it's okay. It's okay.
You wish.
I wish.
No, it's also, you know, you end up everything. It might not always be good that everything is documented. Okay. You know, Celibidache had this idea that not to record because what we were on to earlier, that music is in the moment, and if we always document, and it's always, then we leave that idea a little bit, and it's the unique thing with our art form is that it happens in the moment. You cannot hang it on the wall. You cannot take it up and read it again. And we could potentially lose a little bit of its magic, but I'm sure that there's a way of doing this also live on the internet that will work. But
we have our digital concert hall that we try and do that. With that, it brings a certain stress factor into the live concerts, of course. But as you say, a live concert is a live concert. It's just if you know it's going to be in the archive a few days later, then it's quite a stressful thing. But I just think, you know, we are reaching so many people, and you see all the people, your fans from Guatemala, from Bente from Norway, who said hi, you know, Peter in DC, Tomak from Poland. It's really incredible.
Thing. Absolutely wonderful thing. I completely agree.
So, I mean, I would like to say thank you. It's just been incredible. There's all these questions still. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you this chat, and if there's anyone you want to answer in particular, tell me, and maybe we can get back to them, because there's more questions about bending. Sarah and Håkan. Oh, Sarah and Håkan, do you have any advice for someone who has to switch between horn and trumpet? Says Austin from Illinois.
Wow.
Well, I wouldn't do it. Would you? Ask James.
Ask David Guerrier, who does both.
He's the only one I know that does that, David. I haven't got a clue, because the only fingerings I know are the B-flat scale, and I prefer the horn actually, and I'm sure Håkan prefers the trumpet.
Absolutely.
I asked James Morrison actually on one of these hangouts why he didn't play the horn, because he plays everything else.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, Sarah, the horn's too hard." So what are your plans?
Well, this is a free day on tour, and then tomorrow we play again.
And it goes
Hiding and busking again.
Hiding and busking.
Yeah.
And the next premiere will be Brett's.
That will be Brett in the summer in the Grafenegg Festival in Austria.
Fabulous,
Yeah.
fabulous.
And
well,
then that piece will go around.
Well, next time you're in Berlin, I'm going to grab you for all your fans here, so that you can come back online. And
it will be a pleasure.
And thank you so much to everyone. Thank you for everyone for joining us. We really appreciate that, and all your questions. And thank you. Thank you to Håkan.
Thank you.
Good night to Tim in Melbourne. Thanks to Jakob and Stefan, our cameraman. We'll have it up in the archive as soon as we can. And see you for Freudis next week on the 24th. Bye.